What you're about to watch isn't just another Senate hearing. It's a carefully crafted performance by Senator John Kennedy, a lawmaker who knows exactly how to weaponize folksy outrage while smuggling in a very specific political narrative. But if you listen closely, you'll notice something far deeper happening beneath the surface. This wasn't about getting answers.
Yes, sir.
Senator Kennedy.
Mr. Director, you and the FBI, working with state and local law enforcement officials in Utah, have caught the assassin of Mr. Charlie Kirk. Is that right?
We have a suspect, yes, sir.
And you did that within 48 hours, did you not?
33 hours.
33 hours. Congratulations. We've had other political assassinations. Back in June, an assassinated Representative Melissa Hoffman, Mr. Hoffman, Senator John Hoffman, and Mrs. Hoffman in Minnesota. You and the FBI and Minnesota state and local law enforcement officials caught the assassin within 48 hours, did you not?
I believe that timeline's correct, Senator.
Congratulations. Sometimes we miss the forest for the trees. Good work. Did Mr. Kirk's assassin act alone?
As I've said since the beginning, Senator, it is very much an ongoing investigation, and I can't speak to the state charges. That's for the state to address on their own, but we are providing them with the same investigatory findings we're parting the department. And as I noted to Senator, I believe it was Cornyn or Hawley, that there are a number of individuals that are currently being investigated and interrogated, and a number yet to be investigated and interrogated specific to that chat room. So we are very much in our ongoing posture of investigation.
So others could have been involved?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I asked you this last time you were here. Kash, you remember Mr. Peter Strzok and Ms. Lisa Page?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Strzok was an FBI agent. Ms. Page was an FBI lawyer. They were both very aggressive anti-Trump political activists who allow their political opinions to affect their work at the FBI. Is that a fair statement?
I believe their text messages and their testimony that was secured by the OIG and DOJ speak for themselves.
In fact, Mr. Strzok and Ms. Page were having an extramarital affair, and at one point, Ms. Page texted Mr. Strzok, quote, "Trump's not ever going to be president, right? Right?" And Mr. Strzok replied, "No, he won't. We will stop it," end quote. Ms. Page resigned from the FBI. Mr. Strzok was fired. They promptly sued the federal government and the FBI and Justice Department for releasing their emails, which revealed all of this. The FBI settled that lawsuit for $1.2 million, gave Mr. Strzok $1.2 million cash, gave Ms. Page, who resigned. She wasn't fired, she resigned, she quit. Gave her $800,000. Who, if the FBI made that decision to give them money?
That settlement was reached in the Biden administration when my predecessor was the director.
Who? Are you saying that Chris Wray did?
The only people that can decide that settlement are the Attorney General in conjunction with the director and the administration.
Okay, so you're telling me that Attorney General Garland and Director Wray decided to give them the money. Is
Yes,
that
sir.
right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, when you took over the FBI, did you find instances of where, under the Biden administration, the FBI had weaponized the agency to push the political beliefs of President Biden?
Sorry, the last part.
When you took over the FBI, did you find instances of where the Biden administration had politicized the FBI to prosecute its political agenda?
Well, I won't speak for other people. having been a target of that weaponization, having been a staffer on the House Intelligence Committee, having had the Justice Department weaponized against me for making the findings and leading the investigation of Russiagate, I know what that feels like. And that's why, as the FBI director, I'm committing to not ever have that ever happen again. But I'm also committed to fully investigating what was done, and that matter is still ongoing.
So I assume, I take it your answer is yes.
Yes, sir.
And you're firing those people, is that right?
Anyone that politicizes their job at the FBI will not work at the FBI.
Okay. You've heard some of my colleagues either implicitly or otherwise suggest that you have politicized the FBI to prosecute the political beliefs of President Trump. Is that true?
I don't know how that can be true when the stats that I cited, to include the 23,000 arrests, 6,000 weapons seized, 1,600 gang and criminal enterprise organizations, 4,700 children found and rescued, more enough fentanyl seized to kill a third of America. The men and women of the FBI are now on an apolitical mission, and this is why the numbers are historic.
Have you fired people because they voted for Vice President Harris?
I don't ask people who they vote for, and neither does the FBI.
Okay. But you've given people polygraphs, have you not?
Many people in the FBI take polys.
The FBI does that all the time.
Yes, sir.
Does it not?
Yes, sir.
For a long time, is that correct?
Decades.
All right. I want to ask you about the Epstein files. Have you seen the Epstein files?
I have not reviewed the entirety of it myself, but a good amount.
Okay. Would it be fair to say that Mr. Epstein trafficked young women, including, in some instances, minors, for sex to himself?
That was specifically the allegations in the 2018 indictment in the Southern District of New York.
Okay. Who else did he traffic these young women to?
In terms of what the investigation, again, going back to 2008, Mr. Acosta, who limited the investigation and limited the search warrants and limited the parameters of the investigation, the only thing we are able to speak to publicly, because he was given a non-prosecution agreement by Mr. Acosta, is that first time period from, I believe, don't quote me on this, 97 to 2001-ish. And then when the Trump administration courageously reopened it.
Ash, excuse me for interrupting, but I'm going to run out of time. You've seen most of the files. Who, if anyone, did Epstein traffic these young women to besides himself?
Himself. There is no credible information. None. If there were, I would bring the case yesterday that he trafficked to other individuals. And the information we have, again, is limited.
So the answer is no one?
For the information that we have.
In the files?
In the case file.
Okay. Now, President Trump has deferred to the FBI and the Department of Justice with respect to the Epstein records. He says it is your call about releasing them. And I understand that the department and the agency have decided to release them in cooperation with a House committee. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So you're releasing them a little bit at a time. Is that correct?
We're releasing as much as we can, but we are limited by 3 different court orders. And the department went back to each of those judges to waive those court orders or have them lifted, and each of those judges declined.
Will you release all of them, or at least as many as you can?
We will release everything we are legally permitted to do so. We are continuing to work with the House on the subpoena request. We have substantially complied with it, but we will continue to release whatever we are legally permitted to do so.
Okay. I strongly encourage you to do that, Kash. This issue is not going to go away. And I think the essential question for the American people is this. They know that Epstein trafficked young women for sex to himself. They want to know who, if anyone else, he trafficked these young women to. And that's a very fair question. I want to know that answer. And I think you're going to have to do more to satisfy the American people's understandable curiosity in that regard.
Mr. Chairman, may I just respond to that? I agree, Senator. And what we have done, and just to remind folks, the Epstein case files existed in the 2 prior administrations, in the Obama administration and the Biden administration, and they didn't release anything. And there was President Trump in the first administration that renewed charges against Mr. Epstein. And I know it's a little complicated to understand, but what exists in the Epstein case files was a direct result of the limited search warrants from 2006 and 7, which hamstrung future investigations because of the non-prosecution agreement. And multiple administrations had the opportunity to look at the entirety of that case file and recommend prosecutions against anyone that was trafficked under Mr. Epstein and anyone that participated in that trafficking. And the only person to bring charges was the prior administration against Mr. Epstein. Now, I am not saying that others were not trafficked and others were not involved. What I am telling you is that based on the information we have, and we have continuously and publicly asked for the public to come forward with more information. If there is, we'll look at it. But based on credible information, we have released all credible information, and the information that the Department of Justice and the FBI never releases is information on investigations that are not credible. And we don't release the names of victims who weren't credible. But in the same time, we don't release the names of victims who were credible. And so that's by law. And so the information we are releasing now is historic, and it is also to the maximum capacity that the law allows. And I know that's not going to satisfy many, many, many people. But if they wanted it done right, then the investigation from its origination should have been done right. And he should not have been given a get out of jail free card to do jail on the weekends for 12 hours a day. And he should have been investigated fully for the entirety of his crime and criminal enterprise, not just from 1997 to 2001.
Senator Blumenthal.
Thank you, Mr. Patel.
This was about reinforcing a storyline that federal law enforcement is somehow hopelessly partisan, hopelessly corrupt, and hopelessly anti-Trump. But when you strip away the theatrics, the picture becomes both clearer and more troubling. Let's start with what Kennedy highlights at the beginning, the rapid arrest of the suspect in the Charlie Kirk shooting and the rapid arrests in the Minnesota political assassinations. Those cases were solved quickly because state, local, and federal law enforcement worked together, using the tools Congress gave them. That should be the takeaway. But Kennedy immediately pivots away from praising law enforcement and moves to something else entirely, pushing the idea that the FBI under Democratic administrations has been weaponized. It's a narrative we've seen for years, one that doesn't survive contact with basic facts. Kash Patel's role in this conversation is equally revealing. Instead of grounding himself in evidence, he leans heavily on his own personal grievances from the Russiagate investigations. He positions himself as a victim of weaponization, then uses that personal claim to justify sweeping accusations against the FBI. This is a classic tactic: turn personal resentment into political ammunition. Kennedy then dives into the Peter Strzok and Lisa Page case, which Republicans have now recycled for nearly a decade. The story is always presented the same way. Two employees had inappropriate text messages, therefore the entire FBI is corrupt. What Kennedy deliberately avoids mentioning is that their personal misconduct was already investigated internally, documented publicly, and dealt with by career officials, not politicians. The process worked, but he brings it up here for one purpose: to seed the idea that political bias is everywhere inside law enforcement and that Democrats benefit from it. But then we get to the part of the hearing that has been deliberately weaponized for decades, the Epstein files. Republicans know this topic lights up a certain part of the political base, so they use it, not to find truth, but to imply cover-ups, conspiracies, and secret protection networks. What you hear in this exchange is Kennedy trying to get Patel to say something that isn't supported by evidence, that Epstein trafficked minors to powerful political figures. Patel repeatedly avoids saying that because he can't. The evidence isn't there. Investigators over 3 administrations, Republican and Democratic, couldn't build that case. But here's the critical detail you won't hear in the clip circulating online. Patel admits that the biggest limitation on the Epstein investigation came from decisions made in the early 2000s by prosecutors in the Bush administration. That sweetheart non-prosecution agreement in Florida, the one that prevented broader investigations, didn't come from Democrats. It came from then U.S. Attorney Alex Acosta, who later joined Donald Trump's cabinet. That decision permanently limited what the FBI could legally pursue afterward. That's why Patel repeatedly stresses that many of the files cannot be released, not because the FBI is hiding wrongdoing, but because they're bound by court orders and old agreements made long before this current political moment. But Kennedy doesn't want to talk about that. He wants the public to believe there's a massive conspiracy, because conspiracies are politically useful. They're distractions. They pull attention away from real issues: gun gun violence, political extremism, failures in public safety, and the erosion of democratic norms. The real takeaway here is this. The hearing revealed far more about political strategy than about Epstein. It showed how conspiracy rhetoric is used as a tool. It showed how the same handful of names, Page, Strzok, Russiagate, are recycled endlessly to create distrust in institutions that are supposed to hold power accountable. And it showed how selective outrage can be weaponized to create the illusion of corruption where there is none. If we want to understand these moments clearly, we have to look past the performance and focus on what the evidence actually tells us, and on what the people asking these questions are not interested in saying out loud. Because in politics, silence often speaks louder than sound bites. If you found this breakdown helpful, make sure to subscribe, tap the notification bell, and stay tuned. We're going to keep cutting through the noise, calling out misinformation, and breaking down the narratives shaping American politics, so you never have to take these hearings at face value again.